The cantina was like most drinking holes, tucked away in the far edges of civilized space. Dim lighting, questionable fluids in colorful glasses, and a jukebox that never quite played what anyone wanted, but always at the perfect volume to justify bad decisions. At its center sat a human. Marcus lounged in his chair like the galaxy owed him rent, boots propped on the table, a glass of cheap synthesized whiskey in hand. The drink claimed to be modeled after an Earth classic, but tasted like someone had translated the word whiskey through 5 languages and a chemical plant. He didn't mind. It wasn't about the taste. It was about the vibe. Across from him loomed a nightmare carved in chrome and war paint. Zex Thor, a towering 4-armed warrior from the Korean Empire, whose name was spoken with reverence across 3 spiral arms. His armor shimmered with heat signatures and ceremonial etchings, each marking a duel won, a challenger bested, a limb taken. "You want to challenge me to a duel?" Zex's mandibles clicked in a cadence that passed for laughter among his kind, deep and hollow. "You?" Marcus didn't flinch. He sipped. "Yep." The room went quiet, then surged into a low buzz of disbelief. Aliens from a dozen worlds muttered, murmured, and pulled up betting apps. Someone in the back already had odds running. It wasn't a question of if the human would lose, it was how fast. "You don't even know who I am," Zex growled, eyes narrowing into violet slits. Marcus popped the last syllable of his reply like a firecracker. "Nope, don't care either." Zex Thor stepped forward, his shadow swallowing half the table. "I am the undefeated, first blade of the Krian, master of the 7 forms of honor." "Cool story," Marcus replied, polishing off his drink and letting the glass thunk onto the table with casual finality. "So, that's a yes to the duel, then?" Zex's armor creaked as one of his secondary arms twitched with barely restrained fury. A hush fell again, and even the jukebox seemed to pause mid-beat. "Very well," Zex hissed. "When I separate your head from your shoulders, I'll mount it alongside the other fools who challenged me." Marcus stood and stretched like he was prepping for a nap, not a death match. "Neat. Always wanted to be a wall decoration. Standard rules." The warrior sneered. "Blade to blade. No projectiles. No energy weapons. First blood or yield. 10 paces. Witnesses. Neutral ground," Marcus added casually, as though they were discussing dinner reservations. "Sound about right?" Zex nodded stiffly. "Plaza of Champions. 1 standard hour," Marcus said, turning for the door. "Oh, and Zex, maybe update your will." The cantina exploded into murmurs, bets doubling in volume and stakes. Marcus walked out without looking back, his shoulders relaxed, his confidence infuriatingly intact. Behind him, Zex Thor stood frozen, one hand on the hilt of his monomolecular blade, the other curled into a trembling fist. He had fought for centuries. He had never lost. And yet, something about that human's smile felt like the beginning of a story he might not be able to end. The Plaza of Champions was ancient in design and pristine in maintenance, a wide circular arena paved with synthetic marble imported from the quarries of Nexus Prime. The galaxy's greatest warriors had stood here. Most had fallen here. It was a place of honor, tradition, and, today, spectacle. The crowd was already massive. Rumors had traveled faster than most con relays. The undefeated first blade of the Kreen Empire was going to duel a human. Not a commander, not a diplomat, just some guy from Earth in cargo pants and a t-shirt. Marcus arrived precisely on time. He stepped into the arena wearing the same clothes he'd been drinking in: weathered boots, a faded shirt that may have once been black, and an attitude that seemed allergic to reverence. The only change was the sword at his hip. It was unremarkable. Plain steel, leather grip, no tech, no enhancements. It looked like something you'd find in a museum next to a plaque that read, "Pre-Galactic Civilization," surprisingly stabby. Zek's Thor, by contrast, had arrived like a walking apocalypse. His ceremonial armor shimmered in shades of iridescent blood red and chrome, humming softly with honor protocols and atmospheric stabilization nodes. Each plate was etched with victories, each shimmer a reminder of a legend forged over centuries. His blade was a monomolecular masterpiece, rumored to cut clean through reinforced hull plating. They faced each other beneath the arena's hovering light orbs, watched by thousands. Silence rippled like gravity. The dual official, a nervous-looking Vec civil servant, stepped forward, his ceremonial staff held like it might explode. Terms are acknowledged. Witnesses present. Combatants, take your positions. Marcus gave Zek's Thor a mock salute. Zex didn't blink. The official raised the staff. Begin. Zek Thor struck like a thunderclap. No posturing, no mercy. Forearms moved in a blur, his blade slicing the air with surgical precision. A whirlwind of violence descended upon Marcus like an avalanche of razor edges. Marcus wasn't there. The crowd gasped. The first blade's opening sequence, a dance of death that had ended dozens of duels before the first breath, had met nothing but empty air. Marcus stood calmly to the left, arms relaxed, head tilted with mild curiosity. "Nice opening," he said conversationally, "though you're overcommitting on your right side transitions." Zex roared and unleashed a storm of blows, his movements a blur of trained perfection. Every strike was executed with mathematical precision, a symphony of war honed over generations. And Marcus dodged, tilted, sidestepped, leaned. Sometimes he just wasn't there. Other times, he was exactly where Zex expected him to be, but 3 nanoseconds before the blow landed. The human hadn't even raised his sword. "You know," Marcus said, ducking beneath a vertical slash, "the way you use your secondary arms to chain the feints into full strikes, that's chef's kiss. But your footwork's betraying your rhythm." The crowd was beyond silent now. This wasn't a duel. This was a dismantling. Zex's form was starting to fray, transitions faltering under frustration. His legend had never included failure, not once, and yet the human was now coaching him in real time. "Fight me properly," Zex bellowed. "Raise your blade." Marcus sighed. "If you insist." What happened next defied most laws of motion and at least 2 security drones recording frame rates. Marcus moved. 1 step. 1 motion. Zex's blade was gone, ripped from his hand mid-swing, launched across the arena, embedding itself point down into the marble floor nearly 30 meters away. A thin line of phosphorescent blue blood traced down one of Zek's wrists, a clean, shallow cut, barely enough to notice. "First blood," the official croaked in disbelief. "The duel is concluded. Victor Marcus of Earth." No one cheered. Not yet, because no one could process what they'd just witnessed. Marcus slid his sword back into its scabbard and walked towards Zex, whose arms remained frozen mid-strike. He placed a hand on one of the Creon warrior's shoulders. "Good match," he said. "You've got insane talent. Just needs a bit of refining." Zex Thor finally looked at his hands, then at Marcus. His voice came out rough and distant. "What form was that? What discipline? Who taught you to move like that?" "Oh, that," Marcus said, grinning. "Just some human stuff. Little kendo. Some hema. A lot of trial and error. Started when I was 12. You are supposed to be primitive," Zex whispered. "Your species just reached faster than light travel." "Yeah," Marcus shrugged. "But we've been hitting each other with sharp things for thousands of years. Practice makes perfect." At the edge of the crowd, someone called out, "The betting is complete. Victory odds 1.3 million to 1. Marcus beamed. He turned to Zex, clapped one of his secondary arms like an old friend. "Drinks on me?" The warrior stared at him a long moment. Then, impossibly, he nodded. "Yes, I would. Like that. As they walked from the arena together, still surrounded by stunned silence, Marcus added, "And hey, maybe we talk about rebranding. I'm thinking Zex Thor, the guy who actually smiles sometimes." "That is not a proper title." "Exactly, it's got character. Chicks dig character." Zex Thor groaned softly, but there was no anger left in it. Only curiosity. And perhaps, just maybe, the beginning of something better than victory. The cantina felt different after a duel. The music was the same, plodding synth rhythms and background hums, and the drinks were still neon and vaguely alarming in color. But now, wherever Marcus walked, conversations dipped in volume, heads turned, and alien patrons suddenly found great interest in the bottom of their cups. Zex Thor followed him inside like a shadow forged of metal and regret. He'd removed most of his ceremonial armor, now carrying only a thin scar and a confused expression, one that seemed surgically stapled to his four-emmed face since the duel. They took the same booth. Marcus raised 2 fingers at the bartender, who, in an act of quiet heroism, delivered 2 glasses of something amber and not entirely synthetic. Zex held his untouched, eyes locked on the swirling liquid. "You knew you would win before the fight began." Marcus took a sip of his own. "Pretty much." "Wow." Zek's voice was soft, like iron dulled by snowfall. "Why challenge me? What was the purpose?" Marcus leaned back and looked at him. Not the armor, not the reputation, just him. "To make a point," he said. "Everyone out here looks at humans and sees newcomers. Short-lived, under-equipped, untested. They forget we've spent most of our existence trying not to kill ourselves." Zex tilted his head. "And that makes you, what? Experts at chaos?" Marcus grinned. "Experts at surviving it. On Earth, we didn't develop combat arts to impress nobles or uphold honor codes. We did it because the other guy had a bigger rock, and we wanted to walk away with all our limbs still attached." Zek's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "You fight not for form, but for function." "Exactly. Our sword arts weren't about elegance. They were about surviving long enough to see tomorrow. I studied kendo, hema, a bit of Filipino kali. Some of it is tradition, yeah. But the rest?" Marcus gestured toward the synthetic drink. "It's improvisation, trial by failure, blood, sweat, and the occasional ridiculous outfit." Zex finally took a sip. His eyes widened slightly. "This is terrible." "Right? It's amazing," Marcus chuckled. "You've got the moves, Zex. But you've trained so long to look perfect, you forgot how to adapt when someone colored outside the lines." Zex stared into his glass. "I should be insulted." "But you're not." "No," Zex admitted, exhaling a warbling sigh. "I am?" "Intrigued." A long silence stretched between them, filled only by distant laughter and the hum of neon signs. Then Zex looked up. "Would you teach me?" Marcus blinked. "What, like kendo?" "Everything." Zex leaned forward, voice earnest. "I want to understand how a species with such short memory spans can master something our long-lived warriors have trained for centuries. How you move the way you do, how you think the way you do." Marcus scratched the back of his neck. "Sure, but only if you teach me that wild forearm technique of yours. I've got ideas." Zex hesitated. "You don't have 4 arms." "Details," Marcus said. "We'll improvise." And just like that, a duel turned into a dialogue, and a rivalry cracked open to reveal the first spark of an unlikely friendship. They stayed until the cantina lights dimmed and the staff started making passive-aggressive cleaning noises. Stories were swapped, blades were drawn and compared. At some point, Zex tried something called bar peanuts, and Marcus explained the concept of karaoke. When they stepped back into the corridor hours later, Zexor paused and turned to his human companion. "I still do not understand how your people reached the stars." Marcus grinned. "Nobody does. That's half the fun. They walked on, not as warrior and challenger, but as sparring partners, as brothers in blades, as the very first step toward chaos-controlled collaboration that would one day reshape galactic martial arts forever. "This is a terrible idea," Zexthor muttered, his mandibles clicking in what Marcus had come to interpret as the crayon version of a weary sigh. Marcus, meanwhile, was too busy tapping away at a glowing holographic form hovering between them. "Yeah, but it's our terrible idea." They were sitting in the registration atrium of New Alexandria, the neutral capital of interstellar diplomacy and host to the greatest martial arts spectacle in known space, the Grand Galactic Combat Arts Tournament. Every 5 standard years, the galaxy's finest warriors gathered here to clash, to impress, to bleed, and now, apparently, to be upstaged by a human in worn boots and a 4-armed alien learning how to relax. "We've trained together for 6 months, Marcus continued, swiping through waiver clauses and legal disclaimers. "We've got synchronization, flair, and devastatingly good looks. We're ready." "We've practiced chaos," Zex corrected. "There's a difference." "Controlled chaos," Marcus countered. "It's our thing. Besides, nobody's ever tried a human-crayon hybrid technique in the paired division. We'll be the first." Zex crossed all 4 arms. "There are reasons no one has tried it." "Exactly," Marcus grinned. "Which means we're unpredictable. Unpredictable wins fights." The registration AI dinged softly as Marcus finalized their application. "Team name?" it asked in a cheerful, synthetic tone. Marcus didn't hesitate. "The Chaos Synthesis." Zek's eyes narrowed. "That sounds like a band." "Perfect. We'll perform on the corpses of our enemies." The AI confirmed their entry with a glowing green checkmark. Marcus leaned back, smug. "There. Done. No turning back now." Zexthor exhaled slowly. "I am beginning to understand why your species has so many idioms involving charging into danger with smiles on your faces." "That's not an idiom," Marcus said. "That's a Tuesday." As they stepped outside the atrium, the sky above New Alexandria shimmered with the planet's signature violet hue. Training drones zipped overhead, and the spaceport in the distance crackled with the arrival of dozens of ships, all carrying warriors from across the stars. "We've got 3 weeks," Marcus said, cracking his knuckles. "Time to get weird." 2 weeks later, Zexthor stood in front of a mirror, turning slowly in disbelief. "I hate you." "You love it," Marcus said from the next room. "I despise it." "You look like royalty crossed with a space gladiator. It's intimidating. It's elegant. It's metallic purple." The outfits Marcus had commissioned were, by all objective measures, absurd. Metallic purple combat suits trimmed with silver plating and swirling accents. Zex's came with custom slots for all 4 arms and a ceremonial waist sash that shimmered like starlight. Marcus's version had a long, asymmetric coat and boots that pulsed faintly with. "Psychological warfare is part of the game," Marcus argued. "Half our opponents won't even know what hit them, because they'll be too busy staring at your shoulder cape." Zex took a long, deep breath. "Very well, but if I die in this, I'm haunting you. Make sure you look fabulous while doing it." Tournament day, round 1. The arena was enormous, an open-air coliseum surrounded by energy shields to keep the atmosphere breathable and the blood contained. The stands were packed with spectators from 1,000 worlds, all here to see legends clash and newcomers crumble. As Team Chaos Synthesis stepped onto the arena floor, a hush fell over the crowd. Even the event announcer faltered. "Our next pairing, Team Chaos Synthesis, featuring Marcus of Earth and Zexthor of the Crayon Empire." The audience erupted in confused murmurs. Marcus whispered, "Ready?" Zex flexed all 4 arms. "Absolutely not." "Perfect." Their first opponents were elegant, deadly, senton blade dancers, 4 legs, 2 blades each, and movements choreographed like interstellar ballet. When the match began, Marcus and Zex moved like wind and fire. The human's unpredictability met the crane's precision. Zex spun in place, his 4 blades whirling into a shimmering shield of steel while Marcus ducked low, weaving between the sentence stilt-like legs and launching upward with explosive force. It was not elegant. It was not refined. But it worked. The crowd roared as the match ended in under 3 minutes. As they walked off the arena floor, panting and exhilarated, Zex muttered, "That was insane." And effective. And insane. Marcus winked. "We've got 5 more rounds." Zexthor sighed, but somewhere behind the stoic expression, his mandibles were twitching in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as a smile. By the time Marcus and Zexthor returned to the arena for their second match, things had changed. The crowd wasn't silent anymore. Now every step the duo took echoed through waves of whispers and rising excitement. Spectators wore makeshift cloaks dyed in shades of purple. Somewhere overhead, a banner materialized midair with animated lettering that read, "Team Chaos Synthesis, break rules, break bones." Zexthor stared up at it, incredulous. "Did someone commission propaganda?" Marcus grinned, twirling his sword like it was part of a street performance. "Fan art, baby. You know you've made it when a 12-tentacled teenager in the nosebleeds is sketching your dramatic poses." Zex muttered something about pride and disgrace in the same breath, but even he couldn't entirely hide the way his mandibles twitched upward. Their opponents today were different. Andromedan combat monks. Sober, graceful, practitioners of an art refined over centuries, 6 eyes each, flowing silver sashes, and weapons that looked more like sacred relics than instruments of war. They moved with a reverence that made even walking feel like prayer. "They look peaceful," Marcus said, stretching out his shoulders. "They are," Zex replied, already sliding into a warm-up stance. "They believe combat reveals the inner self. Their style is both physical discipline and spiritual journey." "Neat," Marcus said. "Let's see what they think of a spiritual sucker punch." The arena's alarm sounded. The match was on. The monks surged like mist. Blades hummed with harmonic frequency, each movement precise enough to make artists weep. Zex countered the first wave with his signature defensive spiral. 4 arms, 4 blades, and 1 perfect orbit of steel. Marcus danced differently. He flipped under a blade, rolled past another, and popped up behind his partner to launch off Zex's shoulders in a flying kick that interrupted the monk's fluid rhythm like a record scratch in a cathedral. It worked. The crowd gasped. The monks faltered. Zex followed up with a whirl of blinding strikes, pressing their brief advantage, and Marcus? He pulled a smoke pellet from somewhere only humans would think to store one, his boot, and vanished into chaos. What followed wasn't clean or elegant. It was unpredictable. It was dynamic. It was alive. The judges called the match after 6 minutes of controlled mayhem. The Andromedans bowed solemnly, acknowledging a style they could neither mirror nor anticipate. As they left the arena, Zex turned to Marcus and said, "We're not fighting like anyone else." Marcus winked. Exactly the point. Quarterfinals Day 3. The Silicon Collective were next. Not monks, not dancers, machines. Semi-sentient crystalline AI, encased in alloy skin and reinforced nerve mesh. Their movements weren't trained, they were calculated. Every stance was simulated in advance, every strike backed by predictive modeling, probability trees, and constant recalibration. They didn't fight, they executed. Zex frowned as the duo entered the arena. "They've already simulated this fight 1,000 times." "Good," Marcus said, bouncing on his heels. "Let's give them version 1001. Round start. It was like fighting the weather, unstoppable, flawless. Marcus barely avoided the first coordinated strike. Zex countered but was parried with mathematical perfection. "This isn't working," Zex muttered. Marcus was grinning. "That's because we're trying to be logical. Time for the stupid plan." "What stupid plan?" "Improvise." And then, mid-fight, Marcus tossed Zex a training baton and took one of Zex's secondary blades. Zex caught it awkwardly. "What are you doing?" "Being unexpected." Suddenly, the pair reversed roles. Marcus moved with the exaggerated flourish of crayon honor forms, spinning and twirling with unnecessary flair. Zex mimicked Marcus's earthborn martial improvisations. Sloppy, sudden, wild, but with the precision of a warrior master. The collective's algorithms struggled to adapt. Predictions fractured. Then, something impossible happened. One of the silicon fighters glitched. It took a half step out of sync. Zex capitalized in an instant, disarming the AI with a strike that should never have worked against logic itself. Marcus swept the leg of the second bot and pressed a blade to its chest. Match over. The judges didn't even bother to deliberate. Aftermath. They staggered back to the locker room, sweaty and battered, half of Marcus's purple coat scorched at the hem. "That was ridiculous," Zex said, collapsing onto a bench. "That was victory," Marcus said, peeling off one armored glove. Their match replayed on the overhead screen. Slow-motion highlights were being analyzed in real time across half the galaxy. Someone had already tagged it. When logic meets lunacy. Marcus cracked open a rehydration pack. "You ready for the semis?" Zex groaned. "No." Perfect. The crowd noise in the grand arena of New Alexandria had reached a pitch that made the reinforced alloy tremble. Holographic banners danced in the air. Betboards flickered with odds. News feeds across 100 systems lit up with the same headline. Chaos Synthesis. The Vec Brothers. Championship Showdown. Marcus adjusted his gauntlets and stared across the arena. Zex Thor stood beside him, calm as ever, his forearms crossed in patient readiness. Together they wore their now iconic metallic purple combat suits, scuffed from battle, patched from the last match, and somehow even flashier under the championship lights. "You nervous?" Marcus asked, voice low but casual. "No," Zex replied. Then, after a pause, "Yes, slightly." "Good, means you're paying attention." Their opponents stood in the opposite corner of the circular arena, the Vec brothers. Tall, pale gray, and eerily identical, the two warriors were practically statues, their twin blades hovering mid-air in telekinetic orbit. For 3 centuries they'd dominated this tournament, their synchronized movements so flawless that rumors of a psychic bond weren't just whispers, they were practically doctrine. "Any last-minute plan?" Zex asked. Marcus cracked his knuckles, same as always. "Which is?" "Controlled chaos." The starting bell rang with a sound like starlight cracking glass. The final dance had begun. The Vec brothers moved in eerie harmony, 2 shadows of the same thought, blades spinning like orbiting moons. They didn't waste time, no showboating, no flair, only precision. They struck with patterns designed to trap, corner, and finish. Chaos Synthesis responded with madness. Zex's 4 blades blurred into a moving wall of defense, deflecting the synchronized onslaught. Marcus darted between them, ducking, weaving, flipping off Zex's shoulders, then rebounding off the arena wall. His blade was fluid, unpredictable, almost playful. The crowd gasped as Marcus shouted, "Time for the pinwheel!" Zex didn't hesitate. He dropped to a crouch, sweeping his lower arms in a tight spiral. Marcus jumped, planted 1 foot on Zex's back, then used the momentum to spin into a flying arc of steel. The move deflected one brother mid-lunge, forcing him to break formation. A pause. It lasted less than a second. But, in a fight like this, it might as well have been an eternity. "They're human," one Vec whispered. "And Kren," said the other. "But neither entirely. They are something else." The brothers shifted strategies. Their movements grew faster, sharper. Telekinetic throws curved through the air, blade strikes blurred into strobe light violence. It was like fighting a storm in the shape of two warriors. Marcus and Zex adapted. They stopped reacting and started dancing. Marcus called moves mid-strike, some real, some improvised. "Duck spin," he shouted, and Zex spun low, tripping one Vec mid-step. "Cross-step breaker," and they collided back to back, rotating out with mirror strikes. The crowd was losing its mind. The judges leaned forward in disbelief. And then, moment of truth. One Vec overextended for the briefest instant, trying to predict Marcus's next move. Instead, Marcus reversed course mid-dash, using Zek's shoulder as a platform once more. He flung himself into the air, twisted into a corkscrew, and landed between the brothers, blades raised in a crossguard. Zex was already there. He swept low, disarming one brother while pinning the other in a forearm lock no one could possibly have trained for. Silence fell like a gravity collapse. The arena froze. Then, the automated referee's voice echoed through the energy shield. "Victe chaos synthesis." The roar from the crowd could have cracked moons. Aftermath. They stood at the center of the arena as confetti rained down like glittering stardust. News drones swarmed. Fans screamed in over 30 languages. Somewhere in the stands, an Andromedan monk threw both arms up and yelled, "I told you they were insane!" The Vec brothers approached, their postures humble but proud. "In all our years," one said, "we have never been forced to think." "You made us feel," said the other. "Congratulations." Then they bowed in perfect unison. Zex returned the gesture with all four arms. "The honor is ours." Marcus fist-bumped them both. "And hey, if you ever want to try breakdance combat training, we run classes on Thursdays." Later that night, they sat at their favorite cantina booth, the championship trophy an elegant swirl of light-infused metal, rested on the table between half-finished drinks and glowing snack trays. Zex sighed. "We actually did it." Marcus raised his glass. "Told you." "Next time," Zex muttered, "we're picking a name that doesn't sound like a punk rock band." "Too late," Marcus said. "We are a punk rock band of combat." Zex took a slow sip. "I'm never wearing purple again." "You'll miss it." "No, I won't." A pause. Then they both laughed, louder than the cantina music. Outside, fireworks lit the skies of New Alexandria. The galaxy had found its new champions, not because they followed the rules, but because they spun the rules into a weapon and threw it like a frisbee at a star. The twin suns of New Alexandria cast long shadows across a towering crystalline spire, a structure so tall it pierced the artificial sky dome. Engraved in shimmering alien glyphs and bold Terran script across the entrance arch were the words, "Intergalactic Academy of Adaptive Combat Arts." Marcus leaned against one of the support pylons, arms crossed, eyes squinting as the light caught the edges of the freshly polished floor. He was grinning. "This is either the best or worst idea we've ever had," he said. Beside him, Zex Thor adjusted his ceremonial harness, now modified to hold datapads, lesson plans, and 4 kinds of protein snacks. "It is almost certainly both." A new era was beginning. What had started as a reckless pairing in a galactic combat tournament had become a phenomenon. Their championship victory wasn't just recorded, it had been dissected, memed, studied, and taught in combat theory courses from Earth to the orbiting temples of the Andromedan monks. The combination of human unpredictability and Kron precision had birthed something new. And now they were about to teach it. The academy doors slid open with a chime that sounded suspiciously like the opening riff of an old Earth rock song. Marcus had insisted. Zex had pretended not to notice. Students were already arriving. They came in all shapes, sizes, and gravitational tolerances. A hexapod student bounced lightly on spring-loaded feet. A floating neural mist from Theta Prime shimmered in iridescent colors as it floated through the doorway. One crystalline being flickered with an anxious glow. In the back, a sentient blob from the Glorby cluster wobbled excitedly while holding a collapsible training staff. Marcus stepped forward and clapped his hands. "All right, weirdos. Welcome to the revolution." Zek sighed. "Please do not call our students weirdos." Marcus ignored him. "You're here because you don't fit the mold. Because your styles don't match up with what the traditionalists expect. Good. We're going to break every mold they ever tried to stuff you into." He pointed to the practice floor, a vast open space with simulated terrain zones, dynamic gravity fields, and multiple observation decks. "We'll teach you traditional forms. Then we'll teach you how to break them. You'll learn precision from the best," he said, gesturing to Zex. "And improvisation from the most chaotic force in the galaxy, me." "Wonderful," Zex muttered. "Now we're branding the chaos." The first lesson was simple: move like yourself. The second was harder: move like someone else. And the third? Invent something no one's ever seen before and make it work. Progress was unconventional. The Quantum Collective student had to be issued a special containment rig after it accidentally caused a brief temporal loop during warm-ups. The Glorboblob learned how to become a low-friction projectile weapon after sneezing mid-roll and launching itself into a wall. The Neural Mist developed a fighting style based entirely on using its shimmer to disorient opponents while humming the Imperial March from a forgotten human film franchise. Marcus loved it. Zex endured it. Together they taught more than combat. They taught creativity. 1 week into classes, Marcus announced a surprise: pop quiz. The students froze. Combat scenario: you're ambushed by space pirates while trying to rescue a diplomat with gravity allergies on a collapsing asteroid covered in banana peels. There was silence. Then someone raised a tentacle. "Is this based on a true story?" Zax muttered under his breath. "Too much of it is." The simulation began. The students didn't perform well, not at first. They tripped over each other. Attacks misfired. But then they started adapting. A hexapod launched the blob over a chasm. The mist provided cover. The crystalline beam created reflective surfaces to blind the pirates. And they won. It was clumsy. It was messy. It was perfect. That night, Marcus sat atop the Academy's observation dome, looking down at the dimmed training floors below. Zex joined him, carrying 2 mugs of synthesized tea. "They're getting it," Marcus said. "They're getting something," Zex replied, handing him a mug. "I hesitate to call it structured learning, but it is effective." They sat in silence for a while. Below them, the students were still practicing. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The neural mist was teaching the blob how to spin kick. The hexapod and the crystalline student were attempting synchronized drills. "Zex," Marcus said, taking a sip, "we may have created something beautiful." Zex's mandibles clicked in agreement. "Or dangerous." Marcus grinned. "Ideally both. It started with a meme." A crude, low-resolution image of Marcus mid-combat, balancing precariously on one of Zex Thor's shoulders while yelling, "Gravity is optional!" Below it, in bold, glowing font, "Adaptive Combat Synthesis." Because physics is just a suggestion. At first they thought it was just a joke shared by students. But within days, the meme had gone viral across 5 sectors. Galactic military training academies were dissecting the move. Merch stores on Terra Nova were selling gravity-defying boots branded with Marcus's face. A group of Zorbly monks even began meditating on the phrase "gravity is optional" as a spiritual mantra. Marcus was, predictably, delighted. Zex Thor was less so. "Well, is this becoming a philosophy?" Zex asked, pacing across their office with all 4 arms waving. Marcus, sprawled on a gravity-neutral couch, shrugged. Because we made it real. It was a training exercise, Zex said. A tactical improvisation. Marcus grinned. And now it's a movement. The next day, Master Cavil arrived. The ancient, multi-egged Varian Grandmaster of the Galactic Combat Arts Council didn't bother with introductions. He materialized in the training hall during a synchronized student sparring match, silently watching as a crystalline being performed a pirouette while deflecting energy blades mid-air. Zex noticed him first. Master Cavil. The students froze. The old master raised one hand. Continue. Tentatively they resumed, sparring, flipping, inventing. The Varian moved silently through the room, watching as a neural mist weaved through combatants, a hexapod ricocheted off walls, and a Glorby student juggled plasma grenades with frightening grace. He approached Marcus and Zex as a containment-suited quantum collective student launched itself into what might have been an interpretive takedown. You've built chaos, Cavil said, all dozen eyes watching a spinning blob land gracefully in a foam pit. Controlled chaos, Marcus corrected. It's in the branding. Cavil nodded slowly. It is unorthodox, but effective, Zex added. We've seen measurable improvement in cognitive adaptation and response across all species types. And also, Marcus piped up, the means are incredible. Cavil blinked, all 12 of his eyes. I would like to learn it, the master said. For the next 2 weeks, Master Cavil became the Academy's most surprising student. The head of the Galactic Council's most rigid institution now practiced side by side with kinetic blobs, neural mists, and a Vlorian teen who could backflip into a power slam. It was chaos, it was beauty, and it worked. On day 13, Cavil executed a move that combined Zex's four-blade spiral block with Marcus's infamous leap over the opponent and slap-the-ear finisher. He stuck the landing. The training hall erupted in cheers. Even the quantum student glitched out a holographic thumbs up. Later, during cooldown, Cavil approached them both. This style, he said, voice low and reverent, is not merely a fusion of techniques. It is a revolution. Zex blinked. You approve? Cavil nodded slowly. I expected arrogance. Instead, I found innovation. You are teaching them to question the shape of combat itself. I mean, yeah, Marcus said. Also, did you see the meme where you're doing the takedown with when the grandpa drops a Galaxy-class flex underneath? I have been tagged in it 17,000 times. Awesome, Marcus said. Galactic Combat Art Summit. 3 weeks later, the Academy was formally invited to present at the Galactic Combat Arts Summit, a once-in-a-decade event held in orbit around the gas giant Eurythra. The invitation came with a condition. Their demonstration must include a formal display of interspecies adaptation techniques. Marcus was thrilled. Zex was skeptical. Do they expect a PowerPoint? He asked. I'm thinking dance battle, Marcus replied. What? No, like actual demonstration, but with music, flair. Oh, and gravity modulation. Zex sighed. You terrify me. That means it's working. They arrived at the summit with 30 of their best students. Species from all over the galaxy had gathered. Military officers, instructors, scholars, elders. And then the Academy performed. It began with tradition, classical forms, perfect postures, synchronized blade routines. Then Marcus gave the signal. The lights changed, the gravity warped, and the demonstration transformed into a swirling kaleidoscope of species and styles, telekinetic duels with interpretive dance, neural harmonics choreographed to combat cadence, quantum flicker feints, and one blob student breakdancing while firing a foam cannon that spelled "Adapt this" in the air. The audience erupted in applause. Later that night, the Council unanimously voted to formally recognize adaptive combat synthesis as a new, official martial arts discipline. They also inducted a new line of regulation-optional uniforms, metallic purple. Zex nearly resigned. Marcus threw a party instead. The buzz never died down after the summit. In fact, it got louder. Suddenly, the academy was no longer just a rogue dojo on the edge of New Alexandria. It had become a galactic landmark. Applicants poured in from every sector, some curious, some desperate, some just looking to meme their way into combat history. What Marcus had once called organized chaos was now a school philosophy, a slogan, and somehow a lifestyle brand. Zexthor was overwhelmed. They wanted a formalized training structure, a syllabus, modules, testing protocols. Holoscreens in the command center blinked with requests from military institutions, educational networks, even a cruise ship that wanted to franchise a combat and chill theme. Marcus didn't blink. "We just need to lean into the madness," he said cheerfully as he scribbled a curriculum outline on the back of a takeout menu. "We don't tame chaos, we teach it how to throw a punch." Zex wanted to protest, but deep down he knew Marcus was right. The curriculum they created didn't resemble anything seen in traditional academies. It was fluid, unpredictable, alive. Their students didn't start with katas or drills. Instead, they were thrown into rotating gravity chambers and told to adapt. Classes were held midair, underwater, and once inside a zero-gravity kitchen. The goal was never to master form, it was to master improvisation. Each week brought a new challenge. Sometimes students were paired with partners from completely incompatible species. Communication barriers, movement mismatches, sensory overload, none of it mattered. They had to figure it out. And when they did, something magical happened. A floating neural mist learned how to counter-grapple using sound vibrations. A hexapod discovered it could launch its gelatinous partner like a living cannonball. A crystalline student broke a record for continuous parrying while blindfolded, assisted only by verbal cues from a blob who communicated in musical hums. Zex began keeping detailed records. What he saw wasn't chaos. It was innovation wrapped in absurdity. The means didn't help. After a surprise zero-gravity duel turned into an accidental acrobatic routine set to retro-human disco, a student posted a clip titled, "Combat Reimagined, The Funk Awakens." It went viral across 12 systems. Soon, meme boards started sharing slow-motion breakdowns of training matches, annotated with text like, "When your form is tight but your gravity's loose." Military commanders scoffed, but their cadets watched every frame. The Galactic Combat Council grew nervous. Then came the delegation from the Vortex Consortium, the most rigid combat authority in the galaxy. They arrived with robes pressed, brows furrowed, and attitudes sharp enough to cut steel. Their leader walked the halls with disdain, unimpressed by the floating motivational posters that read things like, "Failure is just pre-victory." Their verdict? This institution borders on theatrical. There is no discipline. Marcus didn't argue. He offered a demonstration. A battle simulation was loaded, an elite AI based on military data from 100 battles. The program was designed to counter every known martial tradition, adapting to tactics in real time. The students entered the sim wearing mismatched armor, war paint, and in one case, glitter. The battle began. Chaos exploded. They fought in sync and out of sync, switching partners mid-move, using terrain like dance floors, props, and projectiles. A hexapod used a neural mist as a projectile weapon. A blob performed a perfect flip kick. Marcus, of course, narrated the whole thing like a sports commentator on a sugar high. The AI couldn't keep up, its probability engines overloaded. The sim crashed. The Vortex delegation stood speechless. One of them actually clapped. Afterward, in the quiet of the instructor's office, Zex sat with Marcus reviewing the footage. "We've broken the system," Zex said. Marcus sipped his drink. "No, we taught it how to moonwalk." Outside, the training dome was alive with chaos. Students were sparring mid-air, testing out anti-gravity nunchucks. A few worked together on a move that appeared to involve interpretive dance and grappling. Someone painted "Midterms today, yeet or be yeeted" on the wall in glowing script. The academy was madness, but it was working. Zex watched, thoughtful. You know, maybe chaos isn't the enemy of order. Maybe it's what pushes order forward. Marcus tossed him a padded training stick. Exactly. Now let's go teach them how to dodge logic and catch destiny. The final week of the semester arrived in a flurry of flying limbs, holographic confetti, and last-minute chaos that somehow felt completely intentional. By now, the academy didn't just embrace unpredictability, it thrived in it. Students trained in gravity wells, took tests via combat simulations, and defended their thesis by drop-kicking arguments through plasma projections. The cafeteria served experimental protein snacks designed by students, and the Quantum Collective's containment suit now taught an optional module in emotive kinetics and interpretive blades. Graduation was looming, and naturally, Marcus had a plan. Zex Thor was not happy about it. "You want to hold the ceremony on a rooftop? In low gravity?" Zex asked, already pinching the bridge of his crystalline nose. "Not just a rooftop," Marcus beamed, "but the tallest building on New Alexandria. Imagine it, starlight, fireworks, and the view of 10 moons. It's going to be beautiful." Zex paced, his mandibles clicking in anxious rhythm. "There will be flying projectiles." "Graduation caps," Marcus clarified. "Made of biodegradable polymer. Relax. I've seen what happens when your students improvise. One of them tried to install a rocket launcher on their ceremonial sash. And you've got to admit," Marcus grinned, "it was pretty stylish." Despite Zex's protests, the ceremony went forward as planned. On the night of graduation, the rooftop was transformed into a cosmic celebration. Hovering banners projected student quotes and battle slogans into the sky. One read, "If confused, spin faster." Another, "Fail with flair, strike with style." Alien families floated in on personal skiffs and hoverpods. Crystalline dignitaries shimmered under the twin moons. Even Master Kaval of the Galactic Combat Arts Council arrived, this time wearing, much to everyone's delight, a modified version of the Academy's uniform, complete with magnetic tap shoes. Students lined up, glittering under the stars. Each was called forward by Zex, who did his best to keep a straight face as names like Florp the Third of the Singularity Cluster and Glorp the Lesser but Still Feisty echoed across the dome. When it was Marcus' turn to speak, he didn't stand behind a podium. Instead, he hovered midair on a personal anti-grav disc, holding a microphone shaped like a lightsaber. "This school," he said, spinning slowly, "was built on one idea, that fighting styles like people get better when they mix. You've all taken traditions older than galaxies and broken them, then duct-taped them back together and made something better. That's not failure. That's creation." He pointed toward the sky, where firework drones began to arrange themselves in a constellation that looked suspiciously like Marcus doing a flying kick. "You're not just students anymore," he continued. "You're chaos engineers, meme warriors, tactical dancers of doom, and you're ready for whatever the galaxy throws at you." The crowd erupted into applause, some of it choreographed, some of it not. One Andromedan shot confetti from their mandibles. Then came the real surprise. As the last firework exploded into a hologram of a grinning Zex Thor and a winking Marcus, drones descended carrying trays of what could only be described as glowing sushi. "What is this?" Zex asked, staring in disbelief. "Zero-gig sushi," Marcus said proudly, "created by our culinary arts pilot program. It's like eating science." "You're going to cause a dimensional rift in someone's stomach." "Yeah, but what a way to graduate." The sushi floated, the students floated, the music swelled, and somewhere in the background, the Quantum Collective performed a slow-motion pirouette that briefly knocked over a beverage table. Zex turned to Marcus, finally smiling. "This is madness." "This," Marcus said, raising his cup in a toast, is the future. As the stars shimmered above and the galaxies celebrated below, it became clear to everyone watching that something had changed, not just in the Academy, but across the universe. Tradition had met innovation. Chaos had been curated, and from that explosive mixture, something unforgettable had been born.